We'll call to order here. I just, as far as so we have several members. There's Ann. Okay, no, not Ann. But Karen couldn't make it. Her husband is sick. And if anybody is friends with Karen, send her a note or give her a call. But and so we got Patricia online, and it looks like we got Pat online for you guys. And so I think it's a pretty good turnout. So we do have some visitors today. And Jared, I'm sorry, what? Say your whole name.
Jared Parks.
Okay. That's easy to read.
National and state.
It's like those craftsmen that had their name matching their craft.
Yeah.
And then we got Carly Tulin from Coastal Bay. Having the back. So we got a bunch of stuff to talk about. So let me start off with my comments again. This meeting is being recorded, and I always like to have the recording posted up on the Ocean Pines website because we are a public service.
Trying not to be there.
And again, I'm a broken record. I want committee consensus is not what I wanted. Committee consensus is highly important. I always want to encourage that. If you notice, Bayside Gazette a few weeks ago did another article on the pond shoreline. So we're just getting in the news so much. The Ocean Pine Volunteer Appreciation Dinner is coming up. I emailed all of you about that. I did get confirmation from Patty and spouses, Brian, Patricia, declined from Ann, Karen, and Pat Benner. Don, what do you think?
I have to decline. I'll be out of town.
Okay. And John?
It doesn't look good.
Okay.
I'd like to be able to, but I got some other issues going on right now.
Okay. We're gonna have a small table.
Can you have that list to me? I'd like to get it in early, maybe by Monday or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
Okay. All right, is there a motion to approve the agenda as is? Note, I did add in the Bay Day issue on new business. So we will have that. So is there a motion to approve? Okay, thank you, Brian. And second?
Yes.
Oh, I'll put Patty down. I haven't used your name. Okay, how about the minutes from the January meeting? Was that you, Ann? Was that,
Pardon me?
you made a motion for the minutes?
Isn't that the last meeting that we had?
Yeah.
Oh, right. We just did the agenda. Now we're doing the minutes. Yeah, I
All right,
motion to.
super.
approve.
And then. All right.
You should be good there. Probably just call me.
All right, thanks, Howard.
Share back on the side, just picture, come up with the windows, Miss PowerPoint, whatever, presentation.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's good timing. So again, we got Jared Parks and Carly Tulin. They're going to talk about the invasive species issue. And then we'll just touch on just a couple other little items. Again, we want to, if we can finish this by 10:50, that would be great. Or earlier. So
we've got about 20 slides, a little less than that. So
Okay.
at 2 minutes a slide, we should be done.
okay.
And some of them are fairly quick, so they
Yeah.
can be quicker than that. We wanted to build in as much time for questions.
Mhm.
Probably more important. You can't really put on an invasive species presentation that easy because it would take hours and hours and hours to do full justice. So
Yeah.
we do the basics and
Right.
then let you kind of ask more particular questions if you have them. But
Yeah, I mean, you know, we're smart people, right?
Semi, yeah, pretty much. Pretty much, yeah. We know some stuff.
that's good.
So, yeah, so you don't have to tell us what a tree is, so.
That's good, that's good.
And, because, you know, the idea is just tell us where to find information, because I think it's a committee, if anybody thinks otherwise, I think it's somehow in the future will get involved with removal of the invasive species somehow, either volunteering or whatever.
This might be a problem.
Okay,
Just because it says there's no Microsoft account associated with this computer.
So it doesn't have the
So
software it needs to run.
sign in or create an account.
all right, let me give it back.
I'm sorry, Jerry, are you with
So when you
Crystal
click on
No,
the source, so that you take over the
Okay.
screen.
Thank you.
It won't even let me access the slides because there's not a Microsoft.
And I do have my computer, so I potentially could
Okay.
hook my computer up and do it. But then, and I could do it from back here
I wonder if I could log into my email and pull it out.
potentially.
Do
But you would still have to have PowerPoint on there. to
you
run.
think I could do it as a OneDrive?
Maybe.
I'm gonna try that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna log into my email.
You can try to use it through OneDrive, which may recognize her.
I can try and
Microsoft.
download it as a different type of presentation.
All right, I'm gonna,
You move to the next. Order of business.
all right, so in unfinished business, so we're keeping Jeff busy. I submitted 5 charging documents on the turtle sanctuary idea, and basically that's talking about putting in tree logs, the fish line tubes, additional geese signs, goose egg addling, and white horse park tree plantings. I mean, what's the
Yeah,
circumstance?
so the process is, the chairperson sends me the charging documents that you all, the things that you want to recommend happen. I send them to the board secretary, which is John Latham, and he circulates those amongst the board members and we have discussion. So that's where we are at the moment is all 5 have been sent to the secretary. They've been distributed to the board members. And now we talk amongst ourselves on the level of support, that we want to recommend to John Viola. So that's where we are at the present time.
Okay,
The only feedback I've gotten so far was, I got it actually yesterday. John's told me he took down the dead trees in White Horse Park yesterday.
yeah, I'd be curious what that looks like. And then related to that, so assuming they approve it, it sounds like they will, but I need, who's a good tree planting location landscape type person?
Pat, well, I don't want to speak for Pat, she's on, but she and I walked around the pond and she has some knowledge. I don't know if she had, I'm sure she doesn't have the knowledge that an arborist would,
Well-
but she has, because she was looking at the cherry trees and which have not done well, as you probably know. So when we get back online, you might want to talk to her. I don't want to offer her, but we have.
Well,
had
we don't have to
conversation.
settle right now, but, all right, so I know, but maybe Patricia is a
Patricia, yeah.
target person. And it's really, I don't want to be the one telling Public Works, okay, I want you to put a tree here. I don't want to be the only one doing that. So,
Maybe in collaboration.
yeah, it would be exactly. But to put it in logical locations where it doesn't get in the way because we use the park so much and so on, issues like that. That's all.
And just keep in mind too, that, even when we get when we discuss the one charging documents on the replanting of trees, that doesn't mean it's gonna make it to the top of John and his staff's priority list at the moment. I don't know how long it could take, but
Right.
it's not gonna get done like tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? It's up to John to put it on. If we send it into him and say, listen, this is what we support. Can we get this done? We'll put it in the queue.
Right, yeah, exactly. I understand. I know that Ocean Pines, that's the way Ocean Pines operate. Right. It's not instantaneous. Okay,
Might be more of a matter of where not to put them than the exact
Right.
perfect place to put them.
right.
I should be able to
But we'll
figure
work that
out
out.
our
Yeah.
water.
Okay, so Ocean Pine kickoff event. Patty, why don't you go ahead and, I know you got some stuff to show us. And Brian, do you want to talk about, where you are with the
Sure.
video and stuff? Don't go into, I spent a lot of time.
Right, right.
Just see where we are. I mean, April 20th is coming up, 2 months, so we want to be ready. And I don't know if we have to do too much more.
I have the handouts too, right?
Yeah, go ahead and just, yeah, that'd be great to see what they look like. And so we can kind of settle in on that. We can, next month meeting, we can finalize, the stuff we're gonna bring. You'll be okay with a oyster tank?
Yeah, just to update you, I returned all my mature oysters to the protectors of the St. Martin's River, but I reserved about 4 of them so that we could put them in a bucket, let kids pick them up and touch them. And I also have a cage that's all ready to go.
Okay. We'll bring the,
Floating cages.
all right, so Patty, what do you?
Well, I'll just go real fast and hopefully Don has some assistance for me. I'm not at all anything graphic artist, but I have some pretty awesome pictures. I think like I said, I took some of my pictures and just made some suggestions for the find. Tim and I kind of narrowed it down. This was one of the ones that didn't make the cut. This is another one that didn't make the cut. This is my favorite bird, and this is my second favorite bird. The flickers. Yeah, I know. I have a ton of them. So then we did the kind of settled on the view. This is Manklin Creek.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Thank you. And then I just did like a reddish color. I did some green, and then I did one with a border around it. So this was done on PowerPoint. So I don't have
Is
graphic.
this originally red letters and then it kind of printed out?
So this was the one and I was making the lettering as big as possible, but I'm thinking it might be too big for once it gets on. I don't know, but we can figure it out when we get.
I think the name is actually most important.
Well, on this one, I realized after I read the agenda that we're actually in Environment and Natural Assets Advisory Committee. So I added Advisory Committee, and then I put your tagline down here. But after I put your tagline down there, I was doing some researching and I looked at our resolution, which the resolution says improving the health and vitality of natural resources. That's the quote from the resources from the.
Well,
from the
this was like a
resolution.
combination of words that I pulled out of the resolution. So it wasn't an exact phrase, but I tried to synopsize something.
Okay. I saw different,
Well, that's fine.
but okay, but anyway, it doesn't matter. If you want to put the tagline, so these are just kind of to foster thought on, what would.
Now, the reason why I thought this was a good one, because it just yells Ocean Pines at me. It's got the river, it's got the houses, and it's got their backyards and stuff, and that's like, okay, that's Ocean Pines. Yeah.
Like I said, that's my favorite bird.
I mean, yeah, that could be, but I think we want to highlight
Ocean Pines.
an Ocean Pines view. What, any comments?
I have this up on my 32-inch screen at home. It looks gorgeous. So I really like
What's,
this.
is this, that's not a rainbow, is it? It's just like. a-
It's cloud, it's, this, I see this,
Pass it around so we could look at it. Okay.
I see this.
No.
I see this every morning, by the way. This is sunrise on Manklin Creek looking towards Ocean City every morning.
I'm at this end of the creek and I've kayak down there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Are you on Alden?
On Watertown.
Watertown, oh, okay, you're on Watertown, right? We had that conversation, yeah,
Yeah.
yes,
I like the way it's framed with the trees.
Yeah.
So
okay.
one of these three would
Where
work.
did you get that photo?
I took it,
Did you really?
yeah.
If we ever do a photo contest, you
you're-
should submit it.
well,
It's a really good photo.
I took all of these.
Yeah, you should submit some to Maryland Coastal Days.
I'll pay attention, thank you.
Did you use your phone?
I think this is with my Nikon.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. Some I take with my phone and some I take with my Nikon. This is my neighbor's, deck.
Okay.
So my backyard is right here.
Okay.
And we have an elevated deck, just looking, we have two decks, a lower and an upper, and just look down. It's kind of a little hidden gem back there.
I like the Manklin Creek one, but it's a shame there's not an opportunity to use elsewhere or in some other capacity, one of them that has like live animals in, because
got-
that's an important thing too.
I've got eagles and osprey coming in to fish and then coming out with fish in there. I have all kinds of,
I could apply that to my handout.
I'll send you, how about if
Send
I'll
me some
do a
photos.
stick and or something, I'll get some photos to you. Okay, thank you. So we'll work on, do you have a preference for this is kind of it's not real red, it's kind of like a brownish red color. Well, actually, let's get to Don. Do you have graphics software or, okay,
I don't.
all right.
You can get a Canva account for free. Canva is something that we use to make all flyers, a lot of our outreach material, presentations. You can do a lot with Canva.
Can you spell that?
Canva.
Okay.
It's a really, really great resource. It's very easy to use, very user friendly.
I can even use it. But
I also Photoshop if that would help.
Okay. That's right.
Canva's nice to be able to layer different things over it.
You're welcome to, yeah.
Which one? You think this one or?
I just
Like more of the river myself, but
put a border.
how big is
around it.
how big is the sign?
Well, I
Um,
think it's 18 by
24.
24. Yeah,
the standard,
That's the standard.
wire sign.
Does it go on the table, or is it hung from it, or is it?
Well, any way we want to, we could, the wire sign, at least we could position it anywhere we want.
I think I kind of like this. And and it'll go edge to edge if I use the right software. So this is
Right.
kind of a,
Okay, so the kickoff, they're having a meeting at 4. I'm going to bring this with me. I'm going to show them. And again, I think what's happening, we just submit the PowerPoint file to them.
Okay.
And then they get the sign made. I mean,
Okay.
I'm hoping that
okay,
somehow Ocean Pines, gets that local sign manufacturer and makes it for everybody, for all the committees.
so do you, and I can redo this and get it back to you even like within, run home, do it. Do you want the word advisory in there, and do you want the tagline?
Yeah, but make this bigger, make it a
Yeah,
bigger
yeah.
point size.
Bigger, but with the advisory committee and the tagline.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's not going to be the same point.
Right.
Maybe a little bit
Yeah,
bigger, but this
yep.
one as big as you can.
Okay, got it.
Because the purpose is.
Yes.
is to identify. the
Identify
committee.
us. Okay, I can do that.
Okay, Don, what do you got?
So you asked for 2 handouts, so this is a bifold. Sorry about the black and white. But basically, repeats the purpose that was in the documents you had shared with, which says monitors issues affecting the air, soil, water, flora, and fauna, which has made Ocean Pines a unique community. Recommends to the OP Board of Directors actions which can retain and improve the natural ecosystem so it can be enjoyed for generations to come. I have our names on the front of it. So if anyone has an opposition to having your names associated with the committee, we could do something different there. The center has a strategic plan. Is, just the strategic plan that was needed in that. And then what we've accomplished to include the goose, duck crossing signs, coordination with Maryland coastal bays, and then initiatives, and maybe these really, maybe one or two of these belong to the accomplishments, but increase environmental volunteerism, whether it's through oyster gardening or litter cleanup, fishing line recycling, since that's still in the process, which is the tubes. The Route 90 pond nature signs, turtle sanctuaries, Southgate Pond shoreline restoration, invasive species eradication, and oyster gardening. That's what I have for initiatives.
Do you have a website link that has more information about your committee?
No, but that's a great,
Well, I mean, if you go on the Ocean Pines site and you go to departments and then committees, you can go to the ENA, and then there is more information. It has all our minutes and meeting information.
So it might be good on that bifold to have a QR code that takes people to that if they want to learn more information.
yeah, great.
And you can create QR codes on Canva for free. I don't know if that's part of the pro account or the regular account, but I know that you can make QR codes on there. But having that just so people can scan it and it'll take you directly to that link where they can look at the meeting minutes or recordings and just learn more about what's going on within these meetings, I think would be beneficial to some people.
Well, Guy, do you want to try to add that on?
Yeah.
Okay.
I put Canva down where to actually work that, I think, and get a QR code, and I'll attach that as well.
Yeah.
Either that or at least, the web link, the
Yeah.
address for it.
Okay, so we'll have two handouts.
Yeah, and then the other one is, what can you do to help protect our environment? And walk with the cause by picking up litter along the way. We talk about plugging, I guess. I think plugging was actually a running event, wasn't it? But consider oyster gardening if you have waterfront property, mulch grass clippings and leaves, use minimal amounts of lawn fertilizer, reduce, reuse, repair, and recycle. Just a good old standard tagline for our cause. Utilize the Ocean Pines Public Works Yard for disposal of yard debris. Report illegal dumping. Go down there. Plant pollinator gardens using native species. Do not use waterways or wetlands for disposal. Teach your children not to litter. Participate in the coastal bays marine plunder. And join OC Beach Heroes. And maybe there's other things too we could add to that. But it's to stimulate discussion with people. The other thing I wanted to do was have a giveaway, the grabber. Put your name in here to win this grabber.
Is this accomplishments just like in the last 12 months or is there a time frame?
Yeah, well, I think 10 years is probably, I mean, I know I've only been here for 3 months. I don't know what else we've done.
Well, Andy, do you want to add something?
Oh, nothing specific. I just, it's like 2 accomplishments and hopefully people understand this is in the last, in the recent past, not over the course
Well,
of.
maybe put recent
last 10 years.
accomplishments.
Yeah,
How's that?
that's
Or
probably,
you
yeah,
guys, 2023 accomplishments.
yeah, like that. I know at some point, and I don't remember why, I think it probably had to do with a board meeting, but Sharon asked me to go through a whole bunch of documentation I had over the past several years and just give her a list of any accomplishments that popped out. And I did do that. And that was a while ago. And I probably emailed it. So I probably still have it. But it was rather extensive, not anything you want to put on there. But, I just thought, gee, 2 accomplishments. So recent makes a lot more sense. Or 2023 makes a lot more sense.
I remember at the last meeting, you were saying how you put up signage for wildlife crossing at certain places.
Right.
Yeah.
That's not
Yeah,
much the one-
that's in there. Yeah.
We did that.
Yeah, I think that's a really good thing.
It was well received too,
Yeah.
And I
oddly.
can't tell you how many times I still have to put those signs.
Yeah.
up.
I'm gonna,
Probably tomorrow because we're supposed to be getting 40 to 50 miles an hour gusts
Jesus.
today.
Yeah.
for this evening.
I'm gonna move
So
this
my
one
guess
up,
is tomorrow.
since that's
I just.
pretty much a done deal.
Okay, all right.
That's gonna
Okay,
happen.
all right, all right.
It's a V.
All right, super.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Speaking of the signs, I was looking at the website and I can't find the SOP online. Is it there?
Probably not.
So, I don't know if I have a copy of the final.
Well, I think I emailed it. to
Oh, okay,
everybody,
okay.
except
Then I'll
John,
find,
because
okay,
Your MediaCom keeps kicking me out.
okay.
Yeah.
So,
uh,
okay, then I'll go back and find it.
I understand that. No, I don't have that problem with anybody else.
Well, I don't know. It's my Comcast account. or
But I
whatever.
thought we got that straightened out.
Yeah, but then it's happening again. I mean, you probably got nothing lately from me, right? If you get the agenda?
Yeah.
Well, okay.
It's supposed to do it, bouncing, but it's not.
Yeah.
Computer's lying to you.
I'll tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna send the SOP to Michelle and tell her to put it on her site.
I think that would be,
Yeah.
especially if like somebody like wins the lottery or something and leaves for Aruba and you have to change the who does what when.
Yeah, I hate when that happens.
I wonder what was gonna happen.
Yeah, I know.
That's my retirement. plan.
Okay, again, I think that's pretty much all of the hard stuff. How you doing with the video?
Doing well. What do we call Pat Garcia? She Patricia?
Yeah,
She goes by Pat, but she's Patricia for the purpose
Okay.
of this.
I've known her for 20 years. That's what
Yeah,
Pat,
she
so
goes by,
Patricia. Okay.
because we have three
Right, okay.
Patricias.
Patricia's been helping me with the script. I have some connections in the business. I have a professional narrator who is his favorite, who's read the first draft of our script. So, he's really, once I
I know.
final changes.
The
The only negative I have, is I've done, just walk around, and do some shots and it looks horrible out.
Just like media.
You're right.
Round,
Beautiful.
gray, nothing's blooming.
Ah,
I'm hoping by the end of the month, I get a little green here and there.
That's what they told me.
Uh,
in March.
March, yeah.
The daffodils are coming up though. Have you
Okay.
noticed? They're all over the place.
No, I've seen it.
Yeah, lots of them.
So at least something
One thing.
green.
and
Well,
Whole line of cherries on 50 out too.
your address. Block.
All right.
I know.
You know, if you want to come to my house and sit on my deck for 15 minutes, you'll get,
I love it. I think I know where you live. We go down there and make the left to see, supposedly there's otters down there. I've
I
never
see them all the time. They are so cool. Otters. They're
Yeah.
usually, yeah.
Early morning, the guy told me that lives down there.
I'm at 8, so I'm at the far end
Okay.
near the parkway at the,
Okay.
well, low side. And it's big brown ugly house, just square box that sits out on the creek.
What's in the street?
Boston Drive.
Oh, you're Boston.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
at Boston. It's right next to,
and then are you gonna do something with Jeff and the oyster cage?
Yes, yeah,
Okay,
yes. You were on Ocean Parkway, right?
Yep.
Okay, I thought I saw you get out of your car. Okay. So when it gets a little warmer, we can get together and I'll just want to shoot, you pulling it up, looking at it,
Yeah, anytime.
opening it, whatever. Thanks.
well, that sounds really nice. I thought you were just gonna do pictures, but it sounds like you're doing a whole lot more.
Yeah, I'm trying to do mostly video. I think what would make a really sing would be get some aerials, but trying to see if I
you
can
need a
get
drone.
someone with a good drone. But I found a few things.
Okay. Well, Don, your handouts were still gonna have those pictures of problems, the photos of problem issues, I think on the second handout,
On this one,
or I'm not sure.
well, I'm just trying to figure out how to make, what can you do?
Well, I think on the backside of that. Remember, it was, you set up a page with a bunch of photos.
I did.
I replaced.
Two pictures that I could use on actually on the first handout, the first page.
Okay, but there was also, what I sent you, where you had a page of just photos in a row, in 2 rows of photos.
Right.
And, I replaced them with problem issues, an eroding shoreline, a clear cutting of a lot. I can't remember them all, but it was like environmental problems in Ocean Pines.
Okay.
Is what I sent you.
I will have to revisit that.
Take another look at that. I think that could be on the backside of maybe that one. And
Right.
you'll have double-sided 2 handouts.
Right, okay, all right,
Okay.
okay.
Um, okay, I think that's all of that. So let's, it's about 10:30, so we'll look at the presentation. 11:15 or so.
All right, so good morning, everybody. My name is Carly Tolan. I'm the environmental scientist with Maryland Coastal Base Program. It's really great to be back here and talking with you again about a really important topic. Just to kind of give you an overview of the presentation, I'm going to be going through like about the first half, and then Jared is going to take over and talk about resources, tools, and other information that you guys can take advantage of. So just to start off, what is the problem? So invasive species have been an issue here in the United States, all over the world for a very long time now. This isn't something new. So some of the costs that are associated with it is the economic costs, the threat to biodiversity, and then other issues that I'll talk about in the upcoming slides. But the issue is that a lot of times people don't realize that what they are bringing over from other countries or planting in their backyards, they don't realize that these are invasive species or that they have invasive tendencies. And then also just because of who we are as people, things get accidentally brought over all the time, whether it's from state to state or country to country. A species that is considered invasive here might not be considered invasive in one of our neighboring states. So that's something to just be conscientious and aware of. Like for example, wisteria, we all are familiar with that plant. It is absolutely beautiful when it flowers, and that's one of the reasons why it's planted and why it was cultivated and brought over here. We now know that it's a really huge invasive that causes a lot of damage and a lot of issues, just like many others that are beautiful when they bloom, but yeah, they cause a lot of problems to our native species. So invasives, why are they called invasive? Well, when they are brought over from whatever native habitat they came from and they are planted in their non-native habitat, there really isn't any natural predators or things that consume them or eat them. So they have they just take off in growth. They have this exponential growth where they establish themselves very quickly, and then they outcompete many native species. Whether it's because they have high seed growth, meaning that they produce a lot of seeds all at once, outcompeting other seeds, whether it's because they grow extremely fast, or whether it's because when you try to remove them, if you don't get the entirety of the plant, all it takes is a little bit of that plant left to regrow. So these are all things that create invasives, or like the invasive tendencies that they have, which creates a lot of issues for people who are managing them, creates a lot of issues for our health and safety, and then also the biodiversity of our ecosystems. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about invasive vines in the next coming slide, but this is probably one of the bigger ones that we talk about, just because people see them more often than not versus like an invasive insect or an invasive mussel. Or so vines are something that everyone has seen at some point. So it's something that we can associate with. So going into public safety, you can see from these two pictures that these vines, they're both invasives. One of them is wisteria, and then the other one is porcelainberry. And you can see just the amount of takeover that's happening in these native forests. And what happens is these vines, they choke out these native tree species, and they kill off all, like they just smother them, and then they're no longer to produce any leaves or foliage or anything like that. And then what happens is that the tree dies over time, and then it becomes a safety hazard.
Where's the location of these pictures?
So this is Pemberton Park.
In Salisbury.
Yeah, in Salisbury. And this was actually a massive, massive project was done for removal of wisteria because of how unsafe this environment was becoming for the public to enjoy. And then I'm not too sure where this picture was taken.
I'm not sure either, but the chances are good that it's in Somerset County, which seems to be the the
Big spot.
target for Boysenberry. I mean, like the entirety of Princess Anne is covered by Boysenberry.
Yeah, and then, I mean, we've all seen English ivy taking over trees, so that's another huge vine that we need to focus on. But the biggest thing here is that when you have vine growth to this extreme, the trees die off and then they become what we call widow makers, meaning that they are very susceptible to high winds or storm events. And we have good storm events here pretty frequently. And if anything like this is near your house, is near power lines, is near, you know, access roads, that just creates a lot of safety concerns for people, for your houses, for insurance policies, for emergency situations. So this is a huge issue that people are trying to focus on with managing and making sure that these vines are kept under control, but it's an uphill battle. That's the biggest thing here. Another thing, and you were just talking about seeing erosion on bank sides. I'm sure all of you have seen this wonderful species, Phragmites. That is one of our most prevalent invasive species here in our watershed. And you can find it in almost any wetland in the coastal bays. And then this is Japanese knotweed, which is something that you may not be familiar with, but this is also a very common invasive species that you can find in our watershed. You can tell from these two photos that the biodiversity on these banks is just completely gone. It has become like a monoculture of just one invasive species. And what's an issue with Phragmites is that they don't have the same strong root structure as native plants. So this creates higher erosion rates. It causes impacts to the species that would otherwise live in this area, like the native species that are attracted to it, because it's not providing the same level of habitat that is needed. So then you're kind of having what's known as like a biodiversity desert, meaning that only so many species can inhabit this environment and live successfully within this. So this is another huge issue that we're seeing. And Japanese knotweed, Phragmites, they can withstand a lot. Phragmites in particular, you know, you can mow it down over and over and over again. It's going to come right back up. It does not matter. So you normally have to do like spraying or target spraying for something like this. Sometimes people do controlled burns, I've heard. And then for other species, I've even heard that goats work fairly well. That we can talk about. I'm all for a goat, like a goat thing. I think that would be pretty funny to see. And then you guys are probably familiar with the impacts to our farmers and agriculture and the forest habitat. I mean, we already talked about vines and their impacts on our native tree species, but there's also other invasives that will sprout up, and you know, our foragers like deer will not eat them. So then that puts more pressure on our native species that are already trying to compete with invasive species for growth, for nourishment, for resources. So, you know, deer might not eat certain invasive species, which causes them to grow even more and take over the forest floor or take over the canopy even more quickly. So that can be a huge issue. And then over here with agriculture, was it Amaranth?
That's Palmer.
Okay, so this species in particular is resistant to glyphosate.
It's resistant to everything but atrazine,
Yeah,
in essence, which is one of the nastiest chemicals that is.
yeah.
Farmers
Is that-
each other over it.
Is that a tree?
No,
No.
it's the kind of the
It's like
weird.
a,
It's just
the
like
seed
a-
head, but so that's in beans. It's only about
Yeah,
2
is this-
feet. I've seen it in corn that's over 8 feet tall.
Yeah.
That comes above the corn. It's a nasty plant. It's from the Southwest actually. And each female can produce like 2 million seeds. So it's ridiculous.
Is that considered like a shrub or something?
No, it's a we'll call it a forb. So a herbaceous plant that comes back every year. I think these are annuals. I don't think they're perennials. But once they're in field, the field's done unless you pull it out, because it reduces crop yield by ridiculous amounts.
Yeah.
Because it's taking up all that extra nutrients that all those extra seeds. And on the right is calorie pear, which is become public enemy number one. It's really Bradford pear. It was bred to be sterile, but they didn't realize that it would cross with other pears to create this Franken pear that takes over all the white. So
White
very soon, within the next 2 weeks, you're gonna start seeing white trees pop out. That's all calorie pay that's escaped across from people printing Bradford pears.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're mean.
They can take over the,
They reduce forest growth of like new forest plantings for timber and stuff like that. So you end up with, a forest that's not worth as much for timber dollars as it would be if you didn't have all the other trees.
Is it good firewood?
No, it's not really good for anything and it stinks.
yeah.
I don't know
reduce
why
some of
people
them.
planted them. I know it's a big white thing, but so are cherry
Right.
trees that aren't invasive. And, we have a lot of cool things that could replace this one, but it got pushed heavy in the 70s and 80s. And every development everywhere put these in.
We have them
and
at our office.
There's states out there that have a bounty program for this. If you cut it down, they'll give you a big tree to plant. North Carolina is one, I know, Wisconsin. So it's a pretty big problem across the country.
But I mean, when you have invasive species like the Bradford pear, Callery pear coming in and outcompeting some of our hardwoods or older growth forest areas, and we're not allowing that regeneration to occur, that's impacting species like, our forest interior dwelling birds that need that older growth forest for habitat. In this area, we have some pretty good forest interior dwelling habitat. So they're called FIDS species. But as you can see, with like development and logging and other issues happening in our watershed, those habitat corridors are shrinking. And once a forest reaches below a certain size, it's no longer viable for certain bird species. So that's a threat to them. Just something else to point out. So by no means is this an all-encompassing list. There are plenty more species to target that are of focus, that are on management radars. But these are kind of like the top 10 that exist in our watershed that are of the biggest emphasis and concern. So we know Phragmites, these are all herbaceous species. So this is what lesser celandine looks like. Very pretty, but very bad for our environment.
They probably used to all be Virginia bluebells. So it would have looked pretty in a different way. And then it's just gotten taken over.
Yeah. And then Isaac, we mentioned the ivy species. We have wisteria, porcelainberry, oriental bittersweet, and a mild minute. And then other species of concern, tree of heaven. Is a really big concern, and we'll talk about that in the next slide, and then multiflora rose. So all of these are kind of like our top 10 species that you guys need to know about. You should learn how to identify. And then we also, later on, we're going to talk about what you can plant in place of these that will make your yard look just as beautiful, but also attract our native pollinator plant or pollinators and just be more environmentally friendly backyard. So yeah. So tree of heaven. This is a species that I learned back in undergrad when I was taking forest ecology. And one of the ways that I could always identify it was by smelling the leaves. To me, it smells like a rotten peanut butter. When you rip the leaf open and smell it, it has this really awful smell. And the thing about this tree species is that it can grow in almost any condition. They grow in Baltimore City through concrete. So the worst of conditions these trees can thrive in. So that's what makes them a huge threat. In addition to that, they attract another invasive species, this little guy right here, the spotted lanternfly. So the spotted lanternfly really likes the tree of heaven, which is a good thing, kind of, because it's attacking an invasive species. So it's an invasive on an invasive, but then the spotted lanternfly will see other native tree species and go for that as well. So this kind of brings it in and attracts it, and then it'll go towards other native tree species, which is not good. So we want to try and get rid of these trees. And there are, there's a couple bits of information here, things that they look like. So they can be mistaken for walnuts. If you're not familiar with what the bark looks like, the seeds look like, you can mistake it for a native tree species. So it's important to be able to know those indicators so that you can see it from afar and be like, oh, not a walnut, this is a tree of heaven. Let's see, management recommendations. So seedlings can be hand pulled when soil is moist. And then if cutting is necessary, treat with an herbicide first, allowing 30 days for it to take effect and then cut it. And then you can always treat the roots chemically as well if you can have access to the roots. But those are like the best ways to kind of remove them depending on what size they're at. But yeah, these trees, they're like an urban tree, really. They're found in a lot of urban environments because they can thrive in that.
They were originally introduced by our wonderful road system, Department of Roads across the country, as highway erosion control because they grow fast.
Yeah.
Right.
So same thing, exact same thing kudzu was brought in for too, was to deal with the erosion on the road cuts that they were making.
I did not know that. See, sometimes these things are introduced purposefully. too.
Yeah, well, and the purpose was, you know, a good
Yeah.
purpose to keep erosion down, and they just didn't do their homework on the species that they were putting in because they didn't think about those things at that time.
Yeah.
It just wasn't on the radar.
Yeah.
Fast growing is good.
Wisteria, you guys are all very familiar with this, so I won't talk too much about it. We know how to identify it, especially when it's flowering. We do have a native wisteria, which many people might not know of. So Japanese wisteria grows clockwise, I believe. So they actually grow differently. So they ascend clockwise up a tree or up whatever it's growing, and then our native species will grow counterclockwise. But the issue is that Chinese wisteria
Right.
also grows counterclockwise. So that's not like the best indicator. But to me,
I've never seen our native species.
yeah, I've never seen it either.
And my guess is if you see a big fluorescence of flowers like that, it's not our native.
Yeah.
They brought that in because it's got the bigger flowers.
Yeah.
Ours is probably got little things. Same with Oriental bittersweet. We have an American bittersweet, and just not as pretty.
Yeah. And I mean, wisteria removal, this is the bane of my existence. You can find wisteria at a majority of our restoration sites, and we have been trying to remove wisteria for years and years and years. And the issue is that no matter how much we remove, no matter how much we spray, no matter how much work we put into removing our wisteria, it is coming from the nearby outside properties that we don't have control over. So that is an uphill battle that we are working with. So we are relying on ourselves to take control of your backyards, help manage your invasive species so that we can protect properties that are under conservation easements or being managed by organizations like us. Wisteria, you have to remove the entirety of the plant. If you leave even a little bit of the root, it can start. I've gone to, if you're familiar with the Lewis Road kayak launch, covered in wisteria and multiflora rose. And we had a college group come out one day and remove a huge pile. I mean, I think the pile was like about this big when we were finished. And it was the cleanest and nicest it had looked. And then but come springtime, you would have thought we did nothing. So that's how quickly it can grow and take root again. So you really have to target it. If you cut the roots and do a target spray, that's the best form of management that I've heard from members of MDA. But you also need to have a license to spray. So you can't just go buy that chemical and start spraying stuff.
Yeah, our most, and again, it would be, you'd have to get somebody to help with it, but we use what's called basal bark spraying, which is a chemical called Garlon 5 or Garlon 4. And you actually, we actually mix it with diesel fuel as a surfactant. So diesel fuel actually helps soften the edge and get the chemical into it. And you're just spraying the bottom, say 2 feet of the vine with a backpack sprayer or a hand sprayer. And you paint it basically on, and then it absorbs in. And the great thing about the basal bark is you can do it now. It can be completely dormant and it works. And for those type of vines there, that's what we used. And we also did hack and squirt on Pemberton. At Pemberton, we've treated over 14 acres of it.
Wow.
And it's still bad. It's going to still be bad. And if the park group doesn't continue it, it's going to be bad again. But there's a picture of me with a wisteria vine on my shoulder that's this big around.
Oh, yeah.
It was bigger than the tree that was growing on.
Yeah. Take over.
So just to let you know, there is a stack of handouts there. It's more or less what we call our dirty dozen. We got these done for a grant that we did, and we handed them out to City Park employees in Salisbury. And it just goes through a number of species, not exactly the same as the species up here. But like we said, you could have like 3 or 4 different dirty dozen and they'd all be just as bad as the other ones. So, and again, it depends on exactly where you are. So this was City Park for Salisbury. So they have some very specific issues that are different than the issues that we have otherwise. You know, we usually get grants to help with this stuff, especially the education and outreach pieces. So Maryland is interesting, and then we used to have a really good invasive species program, and now we don't. We don't really regulate invasive species. We have tier numbers 1 and 2 for them, but we don't really control them. We don't control the sale of them. We don't control the planting of them, the movement of them, or anything else really. We used to have crews that would go out, or people that would go out and help people do the work. But there's, as I say down here in the last bullet point, there is a new bill that's up. I don't know how successful it'll be this year. Oftentimes, you know, bills get, you know, submitted, they get toyed with, tinkered with. They don't maybe make a floor vote the first year, maybe they make a floor vote and fail, you know, so maybe take 2 or 3 years to get it through. But usually something interesting comes out of that process. The idea with this one is that they're going to be able to rank them. It will not be allowed to be sold in Maryland. And how about that? Because the only way to keep this from happening really is to not sell it.
Are there any ones that already are not allowed to be sold in Maryland?
No, they're tagged as invasive or, you know, problematic or something like that. But everything is still saleable. Now, they're supposed to be tagged, so it's against the law to sell them without the tag, but you can still sell them. So as far as I know, there's not a single species that you, I mean, nobody's going to sell Phragmites or Johnson grass, right? That's not a nursery tree, right? That's not a nursery species. Gallery pear is, wisteria is, English ivy is, all of those things are still for sale. And there's an interesting slide, I think that's next to us, a little bit more. But the ones that Maryland regulates are called noxious weeds. Okay, it's a different term. Noxious weed does not have to be invasive, which is a non-native, right? Some of our noxious weeds, like Palmer amaranth, are actually native to the United States. They're just agricultural pests that cause huge problems. And because it's an agricultural thing, they regulate it. If it's just a normal thing and the nursery is making a lot of money off of it, they won't regulate it. Or that's the, you know, that's been the process. So these are some of the things to look at, and hopefully if bills are successful, we don't have to look at this stuff anymore. But when they advertise invasives, there's some key words that you can look for to see whether or not it's really a functioning species or not. But if it's, you know, if it's naturalized, first of all, that means it's not native, right? That's what naturalized means. And then vigorous grower, that's a obvious sign. You know, some of our plants vigorously grow, like I have coral honeysuckle, which is our only native honeysuckle. That's a vigorous grower. But it also gets outgrown by the more vigorous grower, which is the invasive honeysuckles. Then, you know, good for erosion control, like we said, you know, Highway Administration brought in different species to control erosion because they grow fast, they cover the ground quickly, etc. But it's usually just a different way of saying it's an invasive species. And they attract birds and wildlife with the showy berries and things like that. Sometimes that could be bad. You know, winterberry has a lot of showy berries. That's a native. But a lot of other things are not natives, and they do have a lot of berries. And if something has a lot of berries, it will oftentimes be very invasive for that reason alone. A lot of these have. So in plants in general, right, you have different ways of producing, right? The sexual reproduction to make a seed, but plants and grows, that's the normal way. But of course, then there's vegetative growth, right? It goes to the roots and then new things come up. Aspen trees in Colorado, right? A lot of invasive species, the bigger problem is they have a lot of seeds and they vegetatively grow and they, right? It's just this huge amount of things that cause them to be more competitive than our own species. So, you know that you have something bad, or you go out and you want to buy something to put it in a specific place. You know, you go to the nursery, they got a bunch of calorie pairs, and that's what they're trying to push on you because that's what they sell. You know, one person said at a hearing that if you told him you couldn't sell calorie pairs, he would lose 80% of his business. Because literally 80% of his business was selling calorie pairs to developers, so that when they did a development, they would plant the whole thing in calorie pairs and they'd buy them all from him. Don't plant calorie pear. Don't plant Bradford pear. Plant one of our natives. We have some really pretty natives that have berries, pretty flowers. You know, this is Downy serviceberry, or no, this is the dogwood. This is Downy serviceberry. Red bud, of course, has got pretty red, kind of like purplish things. Even river birch is a really nice plant for this as well.
Which, let me ask you, so the dogwood, so
Dogwood.
they generally seem to struggle.
There's a sort of a dogwood blight that's been going around with the flowering dogwoods. My guess is that the nursery will start to have cultivars that are not going to be susceptible to that blight. I don't know if it's a blight or a rust or what it is, but there's a disease that's been hurting them for the past decade or so. But there's also at least 3 other native dogwoods that aren't what you know of as the flowering dogwood, the white or the pink, which is a cultivar. Cultivars meaning it's not the straight native species, it's been tinkered with. And we have silky dogwood, we have red osier dogwood, and we have gray dogwood. And I think there might be actually a couple other minor species. They're more shrubby versions. They're not the normal cool looking kind of gangly tree that you think of with a dogwood, but they have clump flowers. They produce berries for wildlife. They're really pretty species, but they tend to be more shrub growing. You can grow them as like a individual, but you can also make them into a hedgerow or something like that.
So in other words, buying those, it's native, but also hardy to some degree.
Exactly. It's not being affected by that. And like we talked about, oak trees, one of the most common trees across our entire landscape, and we've got a new disease that's killing them. That is also an invasive that was brought in, like Dutch elm disease. We literally, the 2 biggest, most important timber trees in the world at the time, we basically destroyed by bringing invasives in. American chestnut is gone from, that was the most valuable timber tree in the world. And you can't find them. And elm trees are the same. So don't bring in new trees. You don't know what you're right? Don't plant bamboo, any kind of bamboo, ever, anywhere, in any reason. Don't listen to anybody. All you have to do is put metal in the ground 2 feet. If somebody tells you to put metal in the ground 2 feet to be able to plant something, don't plant it. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. All your neighbors are going to have bamboo too, and everybody else will have bamboo. And then you can't walk through it. You can't do anything with it. If you like making bamboo fishing rods, you got all the fishing rods you need. But other than that, we don't have pandas. Houston's okay. Plant something else.
Metal in it.
Because the roots can't grow out,
Supposedly.
right?
Yeah.
So the whole point with bamboo is, again, this is a vegetative grower. You come down 50,
Mhm.
you see that big group of bamboo, somebody put one little bamboo pot in the ground, and that is what we got out of it, right? And I've seen it grow up it's been growing up through the shoulder, right through the asphalt. Nasty plant. Don't plant it. If you have it, hire somebody to get rid of it. This one actually has legislation that did pass, and individual counties or municipalities can outlaw this and control the sale, and then actually fine you or make you deal with the neighbor's problem that you caused by planting it and escaping onto your neighbor's property. Japanese knotweed, I think probably talked about before. There's properties in England that are unsaleable because of knotweed. Nobody will buy them. They just have become absolutely worthless because they've been completely taken over by Japanese knotweed, and you can't get rid of it. So a whole bunch of different things. One of our best trees down here that's resistant to everything is holly. And it's a really pretty tree. It's a great border tree. It's a great wildlife tree. It's got great cover. Don't plant it next to where your walkways are. People like walking around barefoot. It's not quite as nice, but it's a really nice tree. But you know, all of these Eastern red cedar is one of my favorites. It's a great boundary tree, and you can create really cool hedgerows without using things like Leland cypress and things like that. We have a lot of great trees that we can use. We just, you know, nurseries don't make as much money on selling natives.
And if
It's the
you,
basic idea.
if you want something a little bit shorter, but you still want a hedgerow, I personally love azalea bushes. Those are my favorite.
And we do have some native azaleas, but the cool thing about most of the azaleas, even if they're not native, they're not invasive,
Yeah,
right? Just because a plant's not native doesn't mean it's invasive.
doesn't mean it's
Okay.
harmful.
Doesn't mean it's harmful. And there's a lot of stuff that we can plant that are not native. They're great, like cherry. I love cherry tree. Flowering cherry is one of my favorite trees.
Mhm.
Not invasive at all. You know, otherwise the entirety of them all in DC would be covered by cherries. We have a lot of these viburnums are really beautiful. You know, they'll have cool plants, and then 9-bark. That's a gorgeous plant. It has like bark that peels in different colors, and it has beautiful flowering and then berries as well.
Is that a lower shore native?
Most of these things can, and you can find the biggest problem with natives is that nurseries are not geared up to
Yeah.
have them as much. So we have a plant sale, Assateague Coastal Trust has a plant sale. We try to only natives and native cultivars. Adkins Arboretum up in Caroline County, great. It's right in the middle of Tuckahoe State Park, so State Park, great arboretum. They have a plant sale as well. We also have Environmental Concern that is out of St. Michael's. They do natives as well. We have a lot of resources for natives. It's still not enough, but you can find them. And then there's a Unity Nursery, which is up in Churchill, which is quite a ways away, has a great selection of stuff as well, and they're creating more and more. So more of the point of that is we're getting more on. It'll take longer and longer to get this stuff, or a little bit longer to get this stuff up to where it needs to be, but all of this stuff is available. And like we like to say with our plant sale, we go for 5, different nurseries, whatever, to find what's a good one place, because it can be hard to cobble all this together to find what you want. Another one that a lot of people have is barberry. It is really pretty. It's got pretty leaves. It's got pretty flowers. It's also got thorns, but it's really invasive. If you go out in the woods, you're bound to find this in the woods, and there's no way to got there except for birds. But we have a whole bunch of different things, especially the viburnums and winterberry. If you don't like winterberry, with winterberry, make sure you buy multiple winterberries because you need at least one male, one female to get berries. Only the female plant those berries out. So there's some interesting things like that you need to know. But most of that stuff is available online and some of the fact sheets and stuff. And there's a lot of resources out there to figure out what's going on and what you can do. Now, I'm not sure the best way to get you these. You can either, take photos of these, or maybe we can send I think we didn't send it, but we'll send you the.
Did we do that last time?
I sent you the invasive species toolkit,
Right,
but there's
on our website.
a lot of things on this slide, and I did QR code so you could just scan it.
This is just our stuff that if you go to our website, you can find, there are QR codes that will take you directly there for them. This is more or less exactly what you have, but it has about another 50 species or more in it. The cool thing about that is that it also gives you the prescriptions of the best way to deal with it. We tried to do it so we're not telling you how to spray stuff. We're not able to do that, but we can tell you that spray will work if you do these types of treatments. We're not going to tell you exactly what chemical to use and things like that. But we'll also tell you what types of integrative pest management could work, meaning mechanical with this, with that, with the best way to remove this is to use all of the tools that you have, to pull it, to weaken it, and then you hit it with, a glyphosate or something like that. You use less chemical and you're more effective in what you're treating. So anyway, so this is dealing with the invasives, and then every year we update our native plant guide if we have new things within our plant sale, or new things have come out, or we don't have new things available to us. But this gives you a good idea of what you can plant, how tall it is, what color it is, when it blooms, all those fun things. Because if you're crazy like me, I want something starting, my first plant just bloomed, and I want plants to bloom all the way through November. And I pretty much have that now. I'm a little weak on a couple of months, but I'm just filling in with all those things. And then texture and color and all of those things are very important in gardening, at least to me, and they're important to wildlife. As I say, if everything is neat and ordered, wildlife doesn't like it. Wildlife likes chaos. Organized chaos is okay, but it's still got to be something. Yeah. These are some guides that are more Mid-Atlantic oriented. Plant invaders of the Mid-Atlantic. There's great winged vinca. Doesn't like vinca, but who hadn't been out in the woods walking where no house has been for 100 years, and vinca has covered the entire forest floor. It's like one of those sneaky invasives that you just don't think of as. And then of course also the alternative with what can you plant. And Maryland Department of Agriculture has a really fairly decent website, and Maryland just in general has a lot of great tools online, mapping tools, information. They've got all the butterflies in Maryland, moths in Maryland, all of those. You find, and certification program. We also have a pollinator garden tour where we invite people out this year. It's going to be June 11th and 12th, or 12th and 13th. We're focusing on Somerset this year, but we also are probably going to be doing some Southern Worcester. Last year we just did Wycombe around Salisbury. Next year we'll probably do all around Berlin, Ocean Pines, Snow Hill area. And so that's a pretty fun event, and that follows up, like I said, our native plant sale, which is always the first weekend of May, and the plant sale online orders only will go live March 1st. I believe is our target date, which I think is SP's target date as well.
I'm not
Online, I can't remember,
But this is something, this slide is really important because this is how you guys can make a difference. This is how you can get involved. This is how you, I mean, even just reporting where you're seeing invasive species and what species you're seeing. I mean, there's some species that are right on the outskirts of our watershed that could make their way into here at any point in time and become a real issue. So staying ahead of the game and having those reportings coming in. Yeah. Knowing what to look for. I mean, those are really, really important ways that you can help not only yourselves, your backyards, your community, but also organizations like ours who are really trying to nip this in the bud.
The folks that do a lot of the treatment, you know, their main thing is the rapid response, early detection, rapid response. If you can find that small piece of Phragmites before it ever took over the marsh, you can do something about it. Once it takes over the marsh,
it's very expensive. Very, very expensive.
And who knows on, you know, how good, you know, the treatment will last, or, you know, sorry.
So could I remove Phragmites from a non-tidal wetland?
Well, yeah, you can. But it's still a aquatic environment, and so you need to make sure that you use and you have somebody. You know, you can do a fair amount on your private property, but literally the label is the law. I mean, if it says it on the label and you don't follow it, you did it wrong, and you could be arrested. Period. Yeah. So it's best if you're doing beyond, you know, spraying the cracks in your. I would recommend hiring somebody.
You know, I was just, you know, hacking it down with a weed whacker.
I mean, that just doesn't work. She says it just comes back up and comes back. Its roots are fantastic at actually growing without mass, so it can keep shooting stuff up for years and years and years. And years.
We actually got rid of it on. If you go to Manklin Creek, you'll see Phragmite, Novak Phragmite. It took my husband about 6 years to get it, and he was meticulous with cutting it down, and then it was the water would come in, and we think it was the brackish water, and right now one will pop up every now and then, and as soon as we see it, we whack it out, but it took years.
It's
consistent. And you have to do it before it sets seed.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to make sure the top comes off before. Same thing as one of our grasses in the woods that's been probably the worst thing actually is called Japanese stilt grass. It's just a small little annual grass, but it literally takes over everything. And so none of our flowers, none of our small plants, it even keeps stuff from germinating. But if you can mow it before it sets seed,
Yeah.
It can't set seed and won't come back next year because they don't have any seed left, right?
Yeah.
So simple mechanical treatments can be pretty good on those things. But if you let it set seed, you've got to spray it, because at that point you've just allowed it to have, you know, thousands and thousands more seeds for next year to grow.
Same with targeting wisteria,
Mhm.
targeting it before it seeds.
Yep.
It's really, really.
Yeah, and once those seeds, like, you wonder, like, how did they get there? Those seeds are tasty, it's full of protein. And that's well,
Eat
grab
them
it.
and poop them out.
Wow,
Well,
yeah,
that's it.
grab it, and then they go hide it in the ground
Hide
over
in the
here.
ground, yeah.
So they just go plant it, you know? I think it's something ridiculous, like 80% of oak trees are planted by squirrels,
Yeah.
right? Doing the work, so.
Isn't that crazy?
And then, yeah, so any other questions or whatever, you can always reach out to either of us, send us an email. If you have any questions, we're happy to do more talks like this. We usually have tables at different events that we go to. And so you might see us out and about. I'm not sure if we're going to do Ocean Pines Day, but that's on our radar.
Yeah.
It's also Earth Day, so.
Yeah, I know you said that
We
you have
also do
something
stuff in
that-
in City Park and Salisbury too for Earth Day. So.
Yeah, I think Assateague is gonna be here.
Right, yeah. So we would love to be here. We're just not sure if we only have.
You want so many people.
And so many weekends open for people
Yeah.
to work, so. But, yeah.
So Jared, if you happen to walk around the South Pond,
Mhm.
50% of the trees there have some sort of vine growing up
Mhm.
around. Now,
Doesn't
the vine might be
necessarily
good because it might knock the tree down. They have turtle habitat, but you know, we want to have trees eroding the soil because now you have, you know, exposed soil. So you were going to say about whether it's a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, some of the art, generally, not everything is, you know. But generally, our native vines won't rip trees down. I say generally because sometimes Virginia creeper can be a problem. It can get really heavy. Some of the bare kind of light brown vines that you see clung to trees are actually Virginia creeper. They can get kind of heavy, but usually they don't even pull stuff down. Our grapes don't pull things down. If you see our grapes, the vine hangs down to the ground, right? It doesn't girdle the tree.
Mhm.
So the biggest problem with year and Oriental bittersweet is it actually goes around the tree, chokes it, and gets into the candy and cuts off the xylem plum, right? That's the nutrient and water traveling. So once it squeezes that out, the plant dies.
Yeah.
It starts dying from the top down. And that's the biggest problem. So our stuff is not as heavy. Like you saw some of those pictures, right? I mean, it's just like somebody put a full blanket over everything. If you look up into our trees and you might see a couple clumps of grape here in August, but you mostly see the tree and the grapevine's in there. It's mostly the vine and you're trying to find a tree. And think about that with wind like this, right? It's the same thing as concept with snow, right? You put heavy snow on tree, then you put wind on it, and that tree has no chance, right? Or has a lot less chance. Same thing happens with these vines. You put that much weight in it, then you get this wind moving around, and the tree and the root system and stuff isn't designed to handle that.
Yeah.
And a lot of the trees at Pemberton snapped off right in the middle.
Okay, one last, you said you have an arboretum?
Well, no, we don't have an arboretum. Adkins Arboretum
Okay,
is a private.
well, let me ask you.
Caroline.
So we're gonna try to get Ocean Pines to buy some native trees. Hopefully they'll get like 5 foot high saplings or whatever. Will there be a good low cost place to get native trees?
Let me get Beth Shepherd to get back. She's got a couple of different places that you could get from our plant sale. But if you're wanting bigger amounts, the state nursery only is the Bearwood Whips, which are really cheap. But you need to treat 2 of them, and they'll take a few years to get growing.
Yeah.
But they're really cheap. I mean, you can get 100 trees for $50. Or, it's not that, but it's pretty cheap. 5 foot trees are a lot more expensive.
Yeah.
But How Sweet It Is has a fairly decent in Fruitland. And then we have a couple of places that we order from outside of the area, but How Sweet It Is the best close place that I know of.
Okay.
Also, place in Virginia, I want to say Johnson's, but that's not right.
I wish I knew. I'm sorry.
It's right outside of Chincoteague, just north of Chincoteague. They have a pretty good selection as well. They have, both of them also have plenty of non-natives and invasives and stuff that they sell, but they,
Something corners, it's like, is that like,
yeah, but it's right
I know.
on the,
exactly, yeah.
right when you're going down, right before you get to Chincoteague. Somebody's name. But anyway, yeah, so there are some good places. Environmental concerns are a decent place, but I don't think they have a bigger stock yet.
All right, great. Fantastic. And lastly, you had some, these are upcoming events. So anybody who wants to scan that, I'm going to take that paper and I'm going to put that in the minutes.
That's just Maryland Coastal Bays Program.
Right.
Lower Shore Land Trust, I know Jared had mentioned a few dates for you guys too. So if you want upcoming events or dates from Lower Shore Land Trust, do you mind sending that? Or
Well, I can send, I'll send it to you. Like I said, the main dates that we have coming up is the plant sale. Pre-sale starts March 1st on our website, and the pickup date is the first weekend in May. And then at the weekend of June 12th, we have our pollinator garden tour. Those are the two main events that we have.
Earlier, I was told by the town engineer of Ocean City that there's a cleanup coming up in the West OC Park and Ride into Marshland. Are you aware of that?
No.
It was supposed to be with Coastal Bays.
That might be something that our marketing and outreach coordinator, Sandy Smith, is
I
involved in.
sent Sandy a
Okay,
note, and I've left her a message.
okay, yeah. She was on vacation in the Florida Keys for 10 days, so she just got back.
Okay.
But I'll make sure that she looks into
Yeah,
it.
well, yeah, okay, thanks. Appreciate it.
But no, I didn't know that. That's great.
All right, looks like we've lost Patricia.
I'm gonna log out of my.
No, I'm still here.
Oh, okay,
He
good.
was just off camera.
Oh,
I had my
good.
camera. I couldn't see the presentation, so I was kind of following along with the document that was sent earlier.
All right, good, thanks. Hey, Don, you don't have an extra copy of your handouts. do you?
I do not.
Okay, sorry, never mind. All right, we're gonna keep going here. New business. Don, you want to just briefly, I also talked to, I'm gonna meet Steve Lynn later, so you want to talk about the Ghost Forest in Columbia Village?
Yeah, this is something that I'd probably get input from
Yeah,
Coastal
yeah.
Bays and SD Coastal Trust,
Yeah,
but
sure.
there's an area at Colonial Village that due to some drainage issue, the amount of surface water had accumulated. And there is some stormwater retention area in this area, but I assume that because it was not draining like it was got to be higher and affected, a couple acres worth of trees. And so the thought process by one of the homeowners was to plant, the tree,
The cypress,
yeah, the bald cypress in that area. Now,
very good idea.
it's basically,
Bald cypress grows all along Pocomoke.
Yeah.
It has some salt tolerance, right? It's loves
Acres down
being
in
wet.
Too.
yeah.
It goes where?
There's some really great bald cypress trees down by Big Mill Pond too.
Oh, right, yeah. You don't have any on the village there. Anyway,
Not to my
but they
knowledge.
like wet feet. They will grow where it's dry. Where it's wet, they shoot up the knees, right?
Mhm.
So what I've found in your yard, if there's a wet spot, is not a great tree to plant because you will be destroying your motor blades on those knees. But if it's just a forested area, probably not a problem, and
Yeah.
it will help dry it out.
Yeah.
So it could be a very good tree.
Yeah, okay, so it would not be, it's a native species, it's not
Yes.
objectable to plant it in this kind of a situation.
Yeah.
Because, this is probably a couple acres, that's been affected.
And you can get, like Leonore does grow significant amounts, and if you're doing a couple of acres, you don't want 5-foot trees. So that might be something that you look into, the bare root whips that order them next year from the state nursery. I go on early. I think they open it up in October, or I'm not sure when, but anyway, anytime before Christmas is a good time to go on, and they're still flush with all the species.
Mhm.
But that's a great place. And then if you, Do you have much experience planting them? Do they need to be tree tubed?
I have not.
That'd be a good
done
question for an arborist.
Yeah,
Some, if you have a lot of deer here, and they do love trees.
yeah,
Some trees they don't really care about and they won't mess with that much. For instance, if you planted Atlantic white cedar instead, they eat that like as candy.
yeah.
Cypress, I'm not sure about. I'm not sure what they're.
Do you get much deer back there?
We get deer.
We do get there, but it's not like here, there's a little family that lives out here.
Right, that just walks up to your car and says hi.
Other ones that can handle water pretty well are river birch.
River
And,
That's a good idea.
And
Yeah.
one of my favorites is black gum tree.
Oh,
Black gum is fantastic. Don't think the monkey balls with the spikes. They
Yeah.
have little blueberries, little purplish blueberries, fantastic wildlife tree. And loves it. So
Wetland.
Tupelo honey, the famous song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's black gum.
Yeah, there's some really good riparian trees that can handle
And of course, red maple, but
What was
red maple will be in there regardless of whether you plant it. so
river
I
birch.
waste my money on it.
Yeah, but the question is, how much moisture can like a red maple?
Red maple it's a more or less a riparian flooded tree.
Yeah.
So as long as it's not swamped all the time, it'll be
Inundated.
fine. Yeah,
Yeah,
Dry 6 months out of the year, be fine.
yeah, usually.
but bald cypress, they can handle that constant
Yeah,
water.
yeah,
They can
yeah.
handle that inundation.
I mean, technically red maple, I've heard things both ways, but it wasn't a huge component of the landscape here. It doesn't mean it's not a native, but it's very, very common in the Midwest.
Yeah.
Along the river systems and flooded plains.
I know river sagebrush. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Bay Bridge, there's tons.
Yeah.
Tons of them.
I like the river birch idea, it's a deciduous tree, and so you don't
And you
have the
can-
screening you get with.
Yeah, you could do some, if it's a couple acres, see if you can get a few species in there. Not, you don't have to have all the same. It's not like you're timbering loblolly pine or something. Yeah.
Okay, Don, did you have any other comments about that?
No, that's all I have.
So I have been talking to Steve Lynn, email, and he got MDE people to help him out there to characterize the flooding situation or the non-flooding and to confirm that. He has been working with Ocean Pines administration they fixed the pipe, but also if they could actually get the trees and plant them. So he's trying to work something out, but this is other good information that we'll try to add to that. And I'm meeting him after the meeting. We're going to go over there. If you have some free time, Jared, you can join
I'm
us.
not sure that I do today,
Okay.
but please email me and wrap me in. And that way I can talk to Beth as well, because Beth used to run landscaping business and, we've gotten lucky enough to have her. So she knows a ton about, that kind of stuff and, good planning recommendations.
Yeah, and I'd like to go with you then, because I know Steve.
Yeah,
Me
yeah.
too, so that'd be great. I have time.
Okay, the debris summit. What's the exciting thing about debris?
It was pretty interesting. I'm not sure if you were there, Jared. Carly, you said
Liz and Ellen are my coworkers. They went and
Yeah.
attended the Marine Debris Summit.
yeah, so the Marine Debris Summit is sponsored by, who is that? Anyway, it's a group of state representatives from Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey, and New York, and some other federal groups that were working on marine debris. And the objectives were to encourage communication, coordination, and partnership. It was held over at the Civic Center. So, there was a couple hundred participants. It wasn't a big conference, but it was a nice size. Looking to identify barriers and opportunities for improvement, sharing research. There were some researchers from like University of Delaware and other universities that offered interesting insight into, plastics and them getting into larvae of oysters and crabs. And so actual, scientific studies where they would expose them to X number of plastic particles and see how many of those nanoparticles made it into their digestive system, which is just totally amazing. Some of the people that were there, Kristen Fiddler, the Assistant Secretary for Aquatics with the Maryland Department of Natural Resources. No action is too small to make a difference. I thought that was an interesting quote. So you can pick up a piece of paper and you've made a difference in the environment. One of the keynote speaker the first day was Uganda Samples Jones, and she was talking about diversity, equity, and DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. But she brought up something called the broken window theory. And the broken window theory, if you're not familiar with it, I think originated in New York City. It had to do with crime in bad sections of the city where, the place looked miserable. There were broken windows all over the place. There's trash on the street. So the objective was, in order to reduce the crime rate, that they would, fix the windows or board them up, clean up the trash. So people didn't feel like it was such a,
They take pride in their community.
yeah. And the same thing here, if you see some place where someone's always littering, it's like, well, clean that litter up and you address that and we prevent that building. So I thought that was interesting. She had brought that up. Talked about, Dr. Christine Nauer from the University of Maryland Eastern Shore, who actually said that if you guys would like, as a committee, do a site visit out there, she would, coordinate that visit and show us their facility where they do the oyster seeding. They actually
laboratory.
Yeah.
That's a really
Fantastic place.
really
Like the
cool
field trip.
place. Absolutely worth the trip. I mean, especially when they're kicking off their season and they have oysters. I mean, it's one of the coolest things I've ever
And
done.
they feed Nemo there.
Well, yeah, let's keep that in mind.
Yeah, let's do it.
So one of their studies, they showed that oyster larvae can ingest 100 nanoparticles of plastic per day. And then they're like, well, if oysters, ingest these plastic particles and then they go to market, well, what happens to people that eat these things? And actually, they will flush the nanoparticles from their system. Europe, she said, requires 24-hour hold time on oysters before they can be consumed by the public, just for that purpose. And of course, we know oysters do filter out a lot of material. So those materials would, technically be removed from their system before you had a chance to eat them. Britta Batchelor from the Ocean Conservancy, she talked about, consuming microplastics, and we're all consuming microplastics whether we want to or not. Highly processed foods contain more than minimally processed products as far as quantities of nanoplastics.
That and PFAS, right?
Yeah.
Huge upcoming thing.
Yeah.
There's research going on in the coastal bays about PFAS, and identifying one graduate student's looking at blue crabs and seeing if she's finding PFAS in tissue of blue crabs, and she did grab samples of water, and PFAS were found in every single one. But there's different amounts and there's different traces, and identifying the sources of PFAS.
What is PFAS?
Perfluorinated alkylated substances. It comes from a big
forever chemical.
Yeah, it's firefighting foam.
Yeah, it's a huge.
That's the major use of it and how it gets into the environment, because firefighters just love to spray that stuff.
It's really big sources are like airports, because they have to have
military facilities.
Yeah, military bases, airports, things like that are big sources.
It's used a lot in waterproofing. There's a huge boot. What was it? Winter. That famous boot maker up in Wisconsin, I think. Waterproofs all their boots. Well, they discharge this stuff all over, so that's got PFAS, big, huge PFAS plant. So,
there's a doctoral candidate from the University of Delaware whose study was to take a look at crab larvae, and crab larvae, I didn't realize this, was graded into different levels. So he takes a look at the Z1 level and the amount of microplastics ingested by that up until the time that they turn into the Z2 level, which is about a month or so. It's all microscopic analysis, and you have to count the number of plastic. It's just amazing. Kathleen Bergner from DENREC, she was there, talk about beach stability. Everyone wanted to know what that crane's doing up there at the Indian River Inlet. It's actually functioning. You might not see it at one time, but it transports sand from the south side of the inlet bridge via slurry with the use of that crane over to the north side to replenish the north side since the inlet needs to remain open and it silts up on the south side. Derelict vessels. We don't have a lot of derelict vessels here, but there's a presentation on Virginia abandoned and derelict vessels. Of course, when you have hurricanes and you have stuff left in the marsh, with, like you saw down in Florida after the recent hurricanes down there, that's an issue. And probably one of the most important things that I really like, which is coastal bays related, is derelict crab pots. When a crab pot, gets its float cut off and it's just allowed to sit out there, it accumulates other crabs. Crabs eat those crabs. Fish come on in, turtles come on in, and it just continues to decimate or reduce the amount of available crabs because now they're in a pot. So they talked about the number of crab pots up in New Jersey. A gentleman, professor from Stockton University, had this study. It was just amazing the number of potential crab pots which have been lost. And so one of the processes with crabbers during the off season, which is basically December through April, is to use side sonars in order to locate them and then extract those pots from the muck, which they're probably resting in.
Yeah, Maryland Coastal Bays, we receive some grant funding to pay a certain amount of watermen to remove those pots. So we have watermen out there in the wintertime going out and they record the number of pots that they get, the number of hours that they work. So Sandy's in charge of that program.
And Sandy said that you have 2 units, I think, and they're available for any boater, I guess, that knows Sandy to utilize. I'm going to use one. For my boat, I probably want to pull the pot up if I could mark it, so it can come on out and someone else can come out and pull it up, because if it's been in the muck for a year or 6 months, it's probably in poor condition and has all sorts of stuff on it.
And there's also ways that you can, same thing with oyster cages. You can, to some extent, you can recycle oyster cages. So if you're an oyster gardener with Maryland Coastal Bays and your cage is in rough shape and you need a new one, you can return your old cage to me and I can pass it along to Oyster Recovery Partnership and they will reuse the material in any way they can. And then if they can't reuse that material, they'll dispose of it properly so that it doesn't end up in the wrong place.
Don, can I take your notes?
Yeah, you can take all this.
I'm going to put it all in the
this.
notes.
I could send you the file.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Then I can.
Yeah. That's
I
why
don't
I'm
have
here.
to retype.
Yeah,
That's the easy way to do it.
Yeah. But
I do have that.
yeah, we're gonna have books of meeting minutes. So plan on it. All right, good. The sewage disposal, just a quick update. Again, Glen Riddle takes their, because their treatment plant is not working right, so they truck it over down the road here to the pumping plant that goes over to the Ocean Pines plant, treatment plant. The county has sent out an RFP to engineering firms to design a new force main that's going to run from Glen Riddle all the way over to the Ocean Pine treatment plant. So we're good. There's more stuff coming in. Just to let you know what's happening.
Does it go into the water or?
Well, it'll probably run along racetrack and then I mean, that'll be a huge project when they have to put that pipe in.
I can hardly wait.
Yeah.
So,
It goes under the golf course. I mean,
but, okay. Pesticide spraying in Ocean Pines, Ocean Pines does it during the summer. Somebody commented on that, resident or whatever. And they were saying, well, is that really a beneficial thing? Is it really does its job? I don't think as a committee, we would have enough sway to change a highly established process of controlling mosquitoes. So the only thing I think we could do is just to suggest some alternatives. Now, I don't know if you guys have any references that I could put into a statement. that-
I think I sent you two things, after our last meeting. I'll double check and make sure that I sent them over to you, but, there was a website that I had sent where, actions that people can take to reduce mosquito habitat. The biggest thing is just standing water.
Well, I mean, that would be a good educational thing
Yeah.
to say, hey, homeowners, try to do this, but we're not gonna get the majority of homeowners to do that. And we got a lot of standing water, especially nowadays.
Yeah.
So it's,
Can I ask when you spray?
I don't know,
So there's things that you can do timing wise.
they do it in the middle of the night.
Okay, yeah, that's the
I
first
was
thing.
gonna say,
for me
I've
to
never
do.
seen it.
No, I've never seen it.
I've been,
heard-
hey,
You can
I've
hear
never
it,
seen
but-
it, okay.
Well, yeah.
But yeah, doing it
Doing
at night, that protects more of the pollinators. It's still not great for them. But like they say, they don't make a spray that just kills mosquitoes.
Right.
So if you're killing bugs, you're killing every bug that there is.
Hmm.
So by spraying at night, mosquitoes can be out at night. And then I also don't know if you treat any of your water bodies.
Yeah.
I don't
With
think
the hormone, which can be really effective because you're not allowing the mosquitoes to go from larval state to adult. And that's just and I'm not sure what that does to
Is that
their,
dunks or is it something else?
no, it's an actual spray that they do. I think it's an aerial spray, but I mean, you're talking about doing huge areas, not like puddles,
Yeah.
like ponds and, stagnant water.
And that
bodies.
doesn't get into the ecology, that stuff.
Well, it depends. That's why I said I don't know what the side effects are, but because it's a hormone that affects a particular, it may affect more aquatic insects and their ability to, but most of our aquatic insects don't go from aquatic to non-aquatic, though it may affect things like dragonflies, which do. So I don't know, but it is another option to have options to do, but I think the nighttime spraying is the most important.
There's also native plants
Yes.
that will naturally repel mosquitoes.
That, would be good education as well.
Yeah.
And purple martins.
Although Purple Martins technically.
They eat
don't
everything.
Mosquitoes.
Oh, they don't?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
They fly too high for mosquitoes.
Okay.
Like if you notice, if you go up high,
Uh-huh.
there are no mosquitoes anymore. So I've got one of our landowners has a 3-story place on Pocomoke Sound, and when you're down on his deck, you can't be there most of the year. It is uncomfortable. Like, because I saw there were so many mosquitoes, his wall was black with mosquitoes, and there must have been 100,000 dragonflies just feasting on mosquitoes. We went up onto the top of his roof, and of course there were deer flies, greenhead flies, everything was attacking you. And it was uncomfortable. We went up to the top where you had a little walk around, not a single bug. It was
Oh.
fantastic. Just 20 feet difference and you were out of the bug zone.
Well, what's the native plant then?
I think lavender is.
Lavender works, and then other ones that aren't necessarily native that work, or you can plant, what's the citronella?
Yeah,
Actually, there's a plant that they get
Mimics
citronella oil
Yeah.
from. You can use that, and then also lemongrass.
lemongrass, yeah.
There's a few other ones that do. I know a guy that actually uses those plants in his garden. That's just pesticides, and he never has any problems. Just uses those plants as companions.
And lavender is, not only does it smell really good, but it's absolutely beautiful and really good for pollinators.
Do they repel anything else or just mosquitoes?
That's a good question.
Well, most of them are really good pollinator plants. So you get bees and
Oh, okay.
wasps and all
Bees
the
will
good
come to
stuff.
them.
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
that'll attract the things that eat those other bugs.
Okay.
Right.
So,
Yeah, bugs do a good job of controlling bugs.
yeah.
So
There's a swamp on Watertown Road that last summer, I saw someone from the Pines bag throwing disc out into this marsh, walking along. Is that
Dunks.
something that would be keeping mosquitoes down, something?
I don't know.
that's.
Probably don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it big or was it little pellets kind of, or little cubes?
Felt like it was big. I was kind of at a distance, seeing him chucking these things out into the swamp by my house. I thought, hope it's
Well, Ocean Pines, I don't know if they still do it, but you could purchase dunks from Public Works. I know they used to do it. I don't know if you
US
do it.
Public Works, actually.
So maybe they're just continuing to try to do things.
And what are
like that.
dunks?
They're like little particle, donuts.
Like a hockey puck kind
Yeah, it's
of.
got a hockey
That's
puck.
what I was saying
It has particles and I guess it's got some kind of whatever it's saturated in it. It's supposed to be non-toxic. But it,
That's
Kills
drinking
mosquitoes.
water.
Kills mosquitoes. You just toss it in your
Yeah, I don't know if
standing.
it actually kills mosquitoes.
Or it
I
keeps
think
it from-
Keeps them from adulting.
adulting.
okay. That's, all right, canal water quality, the other Karen, our former Karen that used to be on the committee, she keeps bringing up her concern about canal water quality and dumping of grass and whatever. It is an education issue. The spring newsletter will have an article talking about the algae and ponds, but it also highlights, yes, it's John's article, and it highlights how to prevent that kind of pollution, including dumping into the canal. So,
And the other issue is
Yes.
people fertilize
She's not well.
on the side of the canal. And that creates a cyanobacteria when it rains or
Yeah.
water your own. That runs into the canal and it's relatively stagnant. And the next thing you got green from the cyanobacteria.
Is there a fertilizer that doesn't do that? Because I know my brother asked his yard guy.
No, if you think
He said, oh, no, this doesn't hurt anything. I was like,
No,
Wait
you
a
think
minute.
about NPK, all right? All of those are very good for bacteria. NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium.
okay.
and that's why we want to say, well, mulch your grass clippings and then you don't have to pay for.
Yes.
Because
That's what I do. I mulch it and I don't have and the way my yard is, the water doesn't run from the grass into the canal anyway. But I see people who have a slope and they're cutting a yard and their grass clippings are literally blowing into the canal. I've even yelled at people, pull my car over and said, don't do that.
Yeah.
And then I'm afraid they're gonna shoot me.
In this one, yeah.
The other thing is the timing, like if you're watering your lawn, the time that you do that, time of day that you do that is important. And then if you're able to have a rain barrel, you can save your water by using rain
Yeah,
from the rain barrel.
or just don't do it.
What's
Yeah.
the best time you water?
Yeah, because we get enough rain and,
Think
afternoon,
afternoon,
let nature take
because
control.
it'll like if you do it early in the morning, then it can dry out really quickly.
Mm.
But I think afternoon is the best time. I can double check because I actually looked into this at one point and read a paper about it. So I'll double check that for you, but I think it's afternoon.
But you don't want to do it too late because if the wet leaves are wet overnight, then
Yeah.
that can cause disease. Or my sister is
Yeah,
um,
it can cause issues
Yeah,
too.
we
master
could-
gardener,
we
so.
could, water the golf course at night,
uh-huh,
but it's a different
different.
setup and, yeah, you want to be careful with that
Yeah,
because.
that's for my garden.
Fungus and stuff.
Yeah.
go very well with it.
I have rain barrels, but you don't want to use that water to plant, to put on anything you eat.
No,
You know,
You know?
no, it's just for like washing your car or.
yeah, I actually just hook up, I have a couple and I just hook up a soaker hose to it, let it fill up, and then when I'm in a less rain time, just open the valve on it and it dumps out into my flower bed, along the soaker hose. And then, so I don't lose any of it,
So you don't put, why not put it
Because
in?
it comes off your shingles of your house, it has chemicals in it.
Who knows what's in the rain that came down?
Yeah, your
Yeah,
rain is
with- yeah.
acidic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good to know. Because I got a barrel.
It's gray water.
Yeah. Okay.
By the way, I did ask Karen for photos and she did not have any, but John's are better anyway. You asked me to ask Karen if she had any photos of the algae problem or the grass clipping.
Yeah.
But we can always take more if we need them in the summer. Yeah.
Well, these
This
guys,
this is the one I took at the
Yeah.
pond here.
now these are, I think these topics are something that we'll always have on our agenda.
That's something,
Somehow in the future, we'll bring it up again, another article, another expo day or whatever. That's something that I think we need to continually highlight as far as issues in Ocean Pines.
I wonder if it would be possible for, like if John sees his neighbors, see somebody doing that, if he can write down the address, and if Ocean Pines could come up with a standard writing saying, you know, that they could mail it to this person and say, don't throw your,
But it's not just the person who owns the home. A lot of those homes have somebody that cuts their yard.
okay,
That's,
okay.
I mean, I cut my yard, but many of them don't. And those guys own the tractors and they're not bagging anything. They're blowing it all over the place.
Yeah.
Well, the I don't know, Chamber of Commerce has lists of vendors, but it just seems like it's a bad practice and it's a big problem for everybody who lives in Ocean Pines and enjoys the waterways. So if there was something other than just continuously writing an article and.
Well, I mean, again, I think this is something that we need to continually think
Yeah.
about. As far as eventually, I mean, ultimately, it'd be nice if Ocean Pines has like a policy.
Yeah.
For anybody that's just like for tree cutters.
Right.
If you're gonna come in here and, along the waterways, you have restrictions on how you discharge your grass debris or whatever.
Right.
And you could even argue restricting certain plant species being planted in people's backyards. I mean, I know that that's not something that's really regulated by the state right now, but I don't know how much power HOAs have or if they're allowed to do things like that. But if
Depends on the HOA.
yeah, if
Lots of HOAs will tell you exactly what to plant. And I remember
Yeah.
actually.
Although one of the other things though is the people on the home have to understand what the issue is.
Or maybe certain parts.
And a lot of people will go, well, then I'll do something about it,
Yeah.
change whatever the procedure is.
the
You
biggest
just can't assume that,
no, yeah, you can't assume that people
understand. Yeah.
but also you can't assume that people are going to change.
Right.
You have to, it takes, one of the hardest things to do is change people's behavior. And that comes with changing their mindset and their basic values and understandings of the environment.
I think it depends on how the people feel about the environment.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and developing a connection in some way.
And if you get enough
Specific.
people doing it, the ones
Yeah.
that don't do it, will then,
Start doing it.
They'll feel
Yeah.
pressured.
There's also, it's Chesapeake Bay centered, but it's the Chesapeake Bay Professional Landscapers. And we've actually got grants before. I know WET has, I don't know if you've done this yet or not, but where we have gotten a Chesapeake Bay Trust grant. I don't know what you would go through here, maybe coastal, not coastal, but anyway, try to do something where you can train your landscapers in the better practices that are good for water quality. And if you can get a few, if you pay for them to do it through a grant, they will do it. And then you might get better practices being, implemented on the properties that they're taking care of. Because you're right, we have the same thing with our farmers and landowners, like for easements and restoration projects. Is like the landowner oftentimes has no idea what's going on.
well, the EPA now is, in this area has money now that they're getting to do the studies
Right.
and
Yes, I mean,
but that's coming from the EPA.
Yeah, there's also another program that one of our administrative specialists went through, and for the life of me, I can't remember it, but she's Master Gardeners.
yeah, master gardeners and their master naturalists.
Master
My sister's a master
Yeah.
gardener.
Yeah, Master Gardeners,
Yeah.
Master Naturalists, those are all programs.
They meet at the library too. I've seen,
Yeah.
yeah.
And the really great thing about those programs is that, like with Master Naturalist and Master Gardeners, is that they, it's a community that only expands, because as part of you joining that community, you have to give back in some way, whether it's volunteering your
Yeah.
time or hosting an event for other Master Gardeners or Master Naturalists.
Does the garden club participate in that?
My guess is, and I'm only guessing based on my knowledge of from my sister, my guess is there are people in the garden club who are master gardeners, but they're not necessarily all. But that's also, they do a ton.
Yeah.
Just
It's
a ton.
really great.
Workshops and
Yeah.
Just-
So that's fortunately that exists in Ocean Pines. There is a garden club in Ocean
Yeah.
Pines. and
I
that's-
know there's a master gardeners. It might be Worcester County, but
Yeah.
but I've seen,
Yeah.
I've seen that they have meetings at the
Right.
library there.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I'm sure there are people
Yeah, I
who
see.
who
Yeah,
cross
it's been
over.
in Ocean Pines for
When
decades.
when you go in the main lobby, they'll actually have their
Yep.
data sheet up there. You
Okay.
can find out when the meetings are and everything.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna keep moving here. So somebody told me about the Urban Tree Grant Program, one of you guys, and I think somebody else, was online for that, that was done by Chesapeake Bay Trust about the Maryland initiative to, provide grants for planting trees. It absolutely has to be within the designated urban underserved zones in Maryland. And guess what? There is a corridor that is highlighted in Ocean Pines. It's underserved and urban. It's a map and it's orange zoning map, and it's basically between Route 90 north up to Ocean Parkway. So between those two roads and kind of over to the shoreline. So it doesn't include, it includes the golf course. And I think they want to remove trees, not plant trees. And the only other public area is, some of the open space around the swim and racket club. And that's not really a zone of concern for us to get trees in. So it does not include White Horse Park or whatever, the areas that we're concerned about. It's designed for urban areas to plant trees.
Let's find it, Jared. 5 million trees.
I was
Yeah.
literally just about to say that,
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
was just about to say that, and Taylor Swanson told me his name the other day, and I
It's
cannot
Jared
remember.
something. I've been out with him on Fake Love a bunch of times. But he's Maryland's he's the Lower Shore's 5 million trees higher. And he would be the person to talk to. He might know of other funding sources because the urban trees is very, like you said, specific to the underserved communities, but they're trying to put 5 million trees in the ground and they've only got 500,000. So
Yeah, they have a long ways. to
they're
go.
trying to get people to.
Could you
I will do my-
email me
yeah.
that contact? Because if Ocean Pines can get free trees, they're gonna be all over it.
Yeah.
Okay, so
We'll see.
That brings up a good question. You mentioned golf course taking down trees. Is there any initiative to replace the
Yes.
trees? Because, there's,
I mean,
and
I just got a note from John Viola.
Yeah.
They're planting trees on the golf course this year.
yeah. Oh, really? Native species?
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure that we're talking about that. Because if you ever talk to Justin, he's trying to open up the fairways and the rough.
Improve his game.
But it's also important that the fairway grass needs air movement, so they can't have restricted trees too much.
That's
So,
why I mentioned priority list, that
Yeah.
once you get on the list,
Yeah.
they prioritize things. And I know that
And when people play golf, they'll hit the trees.
well, if they're in that
Not
zone,
them.
yeah. If they're in that zone, Jeff, technically they can get like a mini grant because, it depends on how many trees. If it's like up to 100 trees, there's grants up to $15,000. But you have to, that unfortunately, the application is due March 7th. So it's like, they're gonna have to work, all the stuff is on their site.
Only have a couple days.
This will continue.
Yeah,
I mean, the program, 5 million trees program is going to be years.
Yeah.
So if
Okay.
you miss it this year, I'll send you Jared's information
Yeah.
and
It'll be good.
reach out and see what happens, and then he'll know more about the urban trees as well. And like when it's gonna come up, if there's gonna be another RFP. It's just a way for them to segment instead of, having a rolling application that kind of bunches things up, so.
all right, somehow, I'm gonna put that on the Ocean Pines info line. About that, if they want to try to get, for whatever reason, grant money to plant trees. Okay. All right, the Bay Day.
Yeah,
Okay, so you're doing that.
Yeah, Liz is, our education coordinator, Liz West, is heading the Ocean Pines Bay Day event. We are currently seeking volunteers. So if you know anyone, your neighbors, family members, anything like that, who are interested in volunteering at one of our booths, please reach out to Liz Wist. I can give you her email address, but it's also on our website. And then she can help coordinate and find you a good spot at Bay Day. We normally have like 30 plus exhibitors. The focus of the event is the environment and ways that you can contribute towards local organizations, bring awareness to local businesses in your area that care about the environment or put more emphasis on environmental awareness. There's going to be free boat tours. There's going to be food trucks, live music. We always do some sort of craft for kids and adults.
Where,
yeah.
where is it?
It's White Horse Park.
Oh.
Yep.
okay.
And what's the date?
May 17th is a Sunday, I believe. I'll double check right now.
That's late.
I mean, this is an annual thing, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do this every year.
Yeah,
And I'm gonna double check that date right now. Because
I mean, even the Corps of Engineers has a booth there. So she's
But
right.
it's usually like the same
It's
time,
Sunday,
Spring Fest is.
I think that's why I was not.
May 19th. May
That's what I
19th,
would
say.
sorry. I
19th.
apologize.
Wow.
I'll be watching
Yes.
people throw telephone poles.
But yeah, and then if you guys wanted to have the booth
Games of the day before.
present,
Where's that?
you just have to let Liz know.
Right.
And then we can get you on the,
Late.
Well, we had talked about that.
but yeah, really great event.
Say,
Booths at Bay.
yeah, we could duplicate our table.
Yeah.
Because we're doing all the work. We got everything we need.
As much use out of it as
Yeah.
possible.
So yeah, we could do that.
It's just a really great event for people of all ages. So grandkids, bring them, we love to have as many people come and just enjoy a day with us. We also give out some pollinator plants for free. So you can take advantage of that. And then, yeah, there's just a lot of really great resources. We normally have some terrapins or horseshoe crabs or, something that you can interact with.
Okay,
It's great. Yeah.
I'm gonna keep moving. All right, you all heard that. If you want to help out, you can volunteer for all their events. Next meeting, Assateague Coastal Trust will be here, because we have, more opportunities. There's more opportunities. Okay, any open discussion? Issues? Got plenty to do. Okay. You shouldn't be bored. I've got the outstanding issue list here. It was updated, so we're working on those charging documents. So I put the nature signs. I think there's so much going on now, Patricia, that's going to be, we'll work on that in a couple of months from now. So, but that is on our slate to get that together. And okay. If that is all,
Can I get one question?
yeah,
For the video I'm working on, I don't know 100% of our jurisdiction. Is the lake, south entrance lake, and then there's one behind the shopping center there? Is that part of our lake?
Taylor, where
Where Taylor's
Taylor's
yeah,
is that Ocean Pines?
I don't.
I don't have it in my oven, so
I
it's-
think it is. I think it
Well,
is.
let's see.
And then right
Pen it
along,
down.
if we pull up to the golf course, there's 3 small ponds there. Or interlinks, is that?
Yeah, that would be.
Okay.
I need one. I need one of these.
You can get it at the,
Yeah.
At the library.
Right out.
Like when you walk out.
This is fantastic.
okay. Southgate Pond. So there's the one behind Taylor's.
Right.
So it's at least on a map, but it doesn't have a name,
What's that, the pond?
the pond.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know,
Ta-
it
the one
seemed to
behind
me that
Taylor's.
it was,
I thought it
a
was-
man-made pond that was owned by one of the original
What?
shop.
Almost everybody calls it the Southgate Pond.
No, the
Well,
big
the other
one's the
one.
South.
That's the big one.
The other one,
The one behind by
The little one in front of the restaurant.
the Southgate.
Yeah.
Right.
Where the restaurants are,
With it has a little fountain in it.
Southgate.
Two water fountains.
Southgate Grill,
Right.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's what I was referring to.
okay.
I thought they called that the Southgate.
No.
The one across the road
It's
is
a
the
big one,
Southgate
is,
Park.
yeah.
The big one.
I mean, it
Right.
might be Ocean Pines, but at
I
one
don't
point
know.
we had a discussion about it and
At least it is on the
said
map.
it was not, it was not, it was.
On the
private,
map, that
but-
it's the bigger ones at Southgate Pond.
You know what
All
way
right.
you can find out real easy is, do you know Maryland mapping?
Yeah. MD Merlin.
So, yeah, you can pull it up and see
Select
every
that
parcel
parcel.
in the state and who owns it,
Okay.
what
yeah.
jurisdiction that's in, who's paying taxes on it, when it's sold list. Anything you want to know about it, it's right there on the website. So just Google MD Merlin, MERLIN.
Well,
Big state map will come up and you can zoom in.
that's not really photographic.
Okay.
Anyway, Brian.
No.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, this,
Clearly.
the ponds over, as you go into the golf course, yes.
There's some really, this is a great pond to get certain birds on though.
Oh,
Hooded mergansers love it. And
There's a lot of big
couple
turtles in
birds.
there, too.
Yeah, turtles too.
Which pond are you talking
The
about?
little
little
one when you're
one.
coming in on the right. The smaller one on the right.
Yes.
This one's good too, but the geese kind of.
Well, how about Hidden Lake in the pond, in the park?
Right, that's us too.
Yeah,
And that, is this one here? What is this? That's it.
that's a small one all along
Okay.
at the point.
I just went here yesterday for the first time. I never knew this was there.
Yeah.
Cambridge.
Yeah, it's pretty.
Another thing, when you were talking about the algal blooms happening in the ponds, I think I saw on one of the bigger ponds that you guys had something like a floating wetland. Is
That's
that-
that's at the North Gate, I think.
Yeah.
You should try, you should consider putting more of those out. Those are really great.
This committee.
We spoke
talked
about
low
that.
Years ago,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
forget why. we
Well-
didn't move forward with it, but we
Well,
did.
I know in that that pond you were just referring to, that has a name, they have aeration there in those ponds. And that's on a lot right now. And that seems to work really well. Cause I go by there and look in that pond almost every day just to see. And right now it's relatively clean.
It's time of year too.
Well, I know that the temperature.
Wait
affects
2
it,
months.
but
Yeah.
See what it looks like.
Well,
But
I
I
understand.
think it does
Yeah.
it definitely stays clear of the big pond on the other side.
Yeah, those nozzles, those spray nozzles seem to do, that aeration effect seems to really help a lot.
They have that at the golf course ponds.
Yeah.
The one's not working right now.
I was just gonna say, it
Yeah.
looks pretty dingy right now because it hasn't been working for a while.
But that's just something where if you wanted to, like you were talking about when trees fall over, having turtle habitat, floating wetlands can provide that habitat too for different species that are living in that pond. So
So who put out the existing one?
I'm not too sure who did the floating.
Ocean, the Public Works did, and maybe, years ago, the committee said, you should try to do this or whatever, and then they did it. But it has to be in their budget. It's another, process
Yeah.
to keep trying to do that. I mean, that's something we'll always keep in mind. If we get bored, we'll try to do that again.
Yeah, and you can be successful in brackish ponds too, so it doesn't have
We
to
were
just be fresh
talking
water.
about it as in having private people, like, I live at the end of a canal.
Yeah,
And when we were talking about it, it was more of having private owners put one out in front of or in their canal, right in, home or in back of their home, where. And I was interested, and then I don't know what happened to the discussion, but.
There was something about Baltimore. I know they had one in Baltimore and we had an article and there was a person who had designed this. And I got in contact with somebody and they're like, sorry, can't help. I was looking for, plans or design or something like that. And it was absolutely, sorry, can't help you.
I can try and get you in contact with somebody. There was a presentation that I saw at a conference I just went to, and she focused on floating wetlands and helping communities like Ocean Pines invest and design. So I can.
If we had a design, I think if we had a design for it, that would be a good
Yeah.
starting place.
Yeah.
Good, yeah, so
There should be
please
some,
do that.
I can try and find some resources.
That'll help trigger maybe
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
later. All right. Okay, is that it? Motion to adjourn. I need 2 volunteers, Brian and
Second.
then Patty. All right, super. Another good meeting. Thanks, everybody.